when all of this started coming up in the late '90s and early 2000s, and the debate really started roaring in the late 2000s, I was so offended. I was very much a baseball purist and a huge baseball fan, and I always felt those guys cheated. They don't belong in there. And then as the years went on, I found out so many guys cheated, and it's really tough to tell who did and who didn't. There's some people who admitted to the use, and there are some who still don't admit to the use.
Well,
so Woody, how do you determine who goes into that wing?
Well,
because Rafael Palmeiro, he was nailed for PED use, but Roger Clemens still insists he didn't use. So how do you determine who goes in there?
That's why it's so difficult. But let me make 2 points here, I think that are important. I am like you. I voted for the PED
Yeah,
guys.
I would vote
what
for
I
them
called
if
the
I had a vote.
PED guys last year. This year, I felt like there were enough quality candidates that I wanted to vote for the quality candidates.
Yeah.
And so I moved the PED guys over here because they're not going anywhere.
Well, so if they're
not going to get in, but I can bring them back. I could vote for them next year. They're not going to get in.
If there's a year where there are no quality candidates, where there are no guys.
Well, I thought that was true last year. What
So, are you going to vote for McGuire? Are you going to vote for Bonds?
I'll never
are you going to vote for
McGuire.
Clemens?
McGuire wasn't a Hall of Famer. He was a guy who hit home runs at the end of his career. The guy was like a 220 hitter.
Okay, that's fair.
He did.
Bonds and Clemens.
That's the two that come down to it.
Sosa did hit 660 home runs, I think. That's a lot of home runs, Wood. That's like fourth on the all-time list.
And Tony Reale said today on ESPN, in talking to me about sports writers who choose this, and he said, again, how do you know, why are you being so subjective? You're not being objective. And that's the key to this. Are we objective or are we subjective? Well, we are subjective.
Yes, we are.
Because we were talking about it. I vote for Tim Raines. I got to know Tim Raines. He admitted to a cocaine addiction. Now, is that a performance-enhancing drug? I guess people can consider it that it's a performance-changing drug in your life. Whether he did it before and during games, I don't know the answer to that. But what I knew was Tim Raines was a Hall of Fame candidate who didn't use, quote, performance
PEDs,
steroids. Mike Piazza admitted in his book that he used what were banned substances at the time, amphetamines, and there was some other health store drug that he used.
Well, if we kept guys out who used amphetamines, there wouldn't be anybody in the Hall of Fame,
They
especially
were
from the
like
50s,
M&Ms
60s,
when you
and
walk in
70s.
the
They had
locker
jars. I don't know if people realize this. They had jars in the clubhouse of what they called greenies, and guys would need a pick-me-up. The baseball season is a grind. It's 162 games. You rarely get a day off, and there are another 30 exhibition games. And it takes a real physical toll on your body. And there are a lot of days you go to the ballpark and you just don't feel like playing. So guys would stick their hand into those jars and pop the greenies, amphetamines, speed, basically.
Well,
and it's the only thing that got a lot of guys through the season.
And I must tell you a couple of anecdotes here. That one, I walked in the locker room of the Denver Broncos in 78, 79, after the Super Bowl years, and I'm talking to Dave Studdard. And I think he would admit this today. I'm talking to Dave Studdard, and I go, "What is that smell?" And he said, "Look at Alzado." I looked over at Alzado, and he was shooting in the locker room into
Steroids.
his butt.
Yeah.
And he had a sore that was infected on his butt where he was sticking steroids into it. I didn't know anything about steroids. I'd never been around. I
have
don't
a
know
similar
that.
story, a baseball story. I have spent a lot of time at spring training. I went to school at Arizona State. I actually threw batting practice in spring training for the Cubs and the A's at times, and I was a public address announcer at Ho-Ho-Cam, where the Cubs played all those years. And I would go over to Oakland Stadium, and this is when McGuire and Canseco were just emerging. And I can remember vividly, this is late 90s, I can remember vividly sitting in the dugout well before a game started. It was like 10 in the morning, and listening to McGuire and Canseco talk about steroid use. This is before, it was made illegal in baseball. This is before we knew what exactly it did.
Goose Gossage went to the A's at the end of his career when Canseco, this is the same period you're talking about, and he said he had seen them and pitched against them. Now he's on the same team with them, and they're Hulk Hogan. And so he says to a teammate What gym are they going to? I want to go to that gym because I want to bulk up a little bit. And the guy said, they're not going to the gym. They're going in the bathroom and
Yeah.
shooting each other with
Yeah.
steroids. So we've gone through different periods with that. We don't know in all of the cases. I mean, Jeff Bagwell's on the list, and there have been
Rumors about
accusation,
him, yeah.
rumors, speculation about him.
Same with
So
Piazza.
that's why I said Piazza admitted in his book he took, but as someone pointed out to me today, Piazza has hit more home runs than any other catcher. Do you keep him out of baseball because he took amphetamines? Do you keep him out of
I
Hall of
don't. You
Fame?
know what? I've come to the conclusion you just put all of them in. They
And it
were
goes-
the most dominant players of their era. Guys like Bonds and Clemens were Hall of Fame worthy before they started allegedly taking the steroids. Just put them all in. And you know what else that does, Woody? That gets us past it. It just, we don't have to debate it anymore. It gets us past the whole argument, the acrimony, the accusations. Let's just put them in. They are Hall of Fame worthy players.